It's like, at any given moment, you'll see 50 of us just gathered. One of us would come over and say, "Oh, I'm over at Tammy's house," and all of a sudden, here's everybody sitting in the yard at Tammy's house, and everybody's like, "Oh, you didn't call me over," and I'm like, "Oh man, next time." So she was a lover of people, and she was very prideful. That's another thing. She was very prideful, and I think that's another thing she instilled in her kids is having pride. It's like if we're in need, we don't like to borrow, or we don't think we deserve, accolades, or for the things we do in life. We think we should do this because this is what God put us here on earth for.
Let me ask you this. How did she become that way? What was it, do you think, that made her such a loving and caring and giving person the way that she was?
I think she just got, my mom got into the Bible, and I think she went through a terrible marriage, and she like most of her kids, we engross ourselves into the Word of God, and we just focus on that, and we try to do what God would have us to do. And once we do that, we know what we should do as a human being. And once she's, got in the Bible, and she started reading to us and making us, get on our knees and pray and respect our love and respect and our reverence for God, she did that. And she always had that instilled in her, so she tried to instill that in her kids. And if we deviated from that, we knew better, and we would come back to that. And she would always bring, and we would always say, "Oh, Mama would kill us if she knew we didn't do this, or if we said such and such." Even as adults, her youngest child would have been 52, and none of us would curse or use profane language in front of her, or smoke cigarettes. I don't care how old they were. They wouldn't drink, even if it was just a simple beer. They wouldn't do that, just in reference of her. And so I think she got it from the Word of God. And because her mother was a minister, but her mother and other family members had migrated to New York. She did not go to New York. She stayed here in North Carolina. And when she stayed here in North Carolina, she also was a family of 13 kids, sisters and brothers. And so her family would periodically come down, but she had her own thing. It was like she was separate from her sisters and brothers. And, even though her mother was a minister, she had her own little thing going, her own Word of God, and she studied fervently. And like I said, she just really just, stressed to us what we should do. And we were just in the Word of God. And, if you feel guilty about what you're doing, you're doing something wrong. And so, and that's something that, I focus my life on too. And a lot of my family members also do the same thing. If it's not godly, then we try not to, just get in it or have a part of. So I think that's what it was. Her just really is, focusing on God's, the Word of God, that made her that way, that made her just get out and do things for people.
What church did you all attend?
We started at Greater St. Paul Baptist Church, which was on Juniper Street. She made us go every Sunday. Even if we didn't have a ride, she would make us walk all the way from Bragtown and to Greater St. Paul. So that's where we went to church at. Sometimes we would go to a church on Hopkins Street. But then when we moved to the Bragtown area, we continued to go to Greater St. Paul Baptist Church.
When you moved to Oxford Manor, what was that like as a community when you were younger?
Oh my God, we were a family. Like I said, we grew up together. We put together my mom, and she wasn't even on work for Durham Parks and Recreation at this time. She just started to say, "Y'all come up to my house." Of course, I was going to school. They had just started to desegregate the schools when I started going, when I was in 5th and 6th grade. And there was a lot of racist stuff going on. of course, she went down there and let them know that you're not going to mess with my kids. And so, not only me, so because most of the time I was put in a higher classroom than some of the people in my community. And of course, my behavior is not, I'm not going to act up because my mother had instilled the fear of God in me if I acted up. So, my behavior was pretty good, but some of the kids, acted up. So, of course, they called my mom. So, my mom would get on the school bus. My mom would go down to the school because a lot of their parents wouldn't do it. So, my mama was there. They knew her. She knew the school system. She knew everybody in the school system. She knew the superintendent. She knew the teachers. She knew if anybody needed anything. Miss Farrell, such and such is acting up, such and such. Here I come. Let me get a ride. She never drove. Like I said, she had 11th grade education. She would get somebody to take her, pay her. Here I come. I'm on the way. Miss Farrell, I need a ride home. Here I come. Let me send a cab or whatever. It was always something that she just made us a family. Like I said, we might had our little spats in between the community, but we always came back together as a family, and we did things. We had a football team, we had a baseball team. I was a cheerleader head coach, and we had a cheerleading team. We had we had knitting clubs. We had all kinds of clubs and stuff. We did something every Friday and Saturday to keep the kids out of trouble. We had a party, and we sold things to pay for our trips and stuff. We went to the ball games every summer, several ball games at Durham Bulls games. We just went somewhere everywhere. It was like we never sit still. So she never allowed the kids to sit still. She made sure they read books. She opened up the recreation center. Of course, she also made me open up the recreation center, and we would always go down. Even when I got grown and had my own families, we would have to come back to the community and help her. And that was what she required of us, and that's what we did. She was our mother, and we respected her. And when I was growing up and I first moved out, it was like, oh my God, I'm in heaven. I've moved from all of this, dirty town and poverty because they were newly built. So when I first moved out there, Oxford Manor was just being built. All of the apartments had not been built completely. So she jumped right in. And why she jumped in, again, it was because of her upbringing. Everybody would just gravitate towards her. Miss Farrell, can you do this? Miss Farrell, I need this. Do you know who does this? She had already started doing some things over before we moved from Liberty Street and Eva Street, and she just brought all her knowledge over there, and she just continued to, she had a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of resources to give everybody and provide for everybody. So we were a family. Like I said, the police didn't come out. She told them, she said, there's no need for you coming out here. We have nothing to do. And when they, I remember when they did respond, she met the chief of police, and the chief, his name was Steve Chalmers, and they developed such a good rapport. He was like, no, let me just call Jessie on the phone. Or everybody would say, let me call Jessie on the phone. Or when there was an election, let me call Jessie on the phone. Because her and her kids got this, and her and her kids had this. Her and Oxford Manor kids had this. And you best believe that we had this. And all you had to do was call Jessie, and she would put it out there, and it would be done. You didn't have to worry about it, whatever. I would take her notes. I would go her to meetings, Committee on Affairs of Black People, whatever. I would take her notes. She would say, when I tell you to stand up, when I stand up, you stand up too. So when she bringing her people, everybody would stand up. When she stood up, everybody would, it was just a family thing. And, we were talking about that we miss that so much in Oxford Manor. And that's why we do the family reunion portion out there.
That's a wonderful story that you're sharing about your mom. Let me ask this about her. Was she a good cook?
Oh my God! If we could keep her hands, because she never. Everything is done from scratch. She never. There were no cake boxes, not even pie crusts. She did everything from scratch. I mean, everything. Potato salad. We chopped, we cut, we did chickens, we marinated, we did everything. And she would bring us in the kitchen as little girls. And, people say, well, how old do you have to be to wash dishes? Well, ask my mom, because I was 5. And me and my sisters, we went and washed dishes. We knew our part. And, people would say, well, why? And she would tell us, make sure you take care of your husband and your children. Feed them, take care of them first, and then you. And I know nowadays people are saying, what? I wish I had a woman like that, or what? She shouldn't have never, it's funny, but, you have to do things like I tell people who's married or in relationships, you have to do things that's what's best for you, because what's best for you might not be best for me, but that's the way Mama taught us. And we do that. And you can see that if we ever go to a cookout or something, we take care of the kids, and then we take care of our other part, our significant part. Well, that's what she said, significant part. But she cooked everything from scratch. We still cannot duplicate some of her recipes. We are still, we go get together and we'll say, what did she put in that? And we'll send each other things. Oh no, I don't think she put that in there, or whatever. And we still cannot duplicate a lot of her recipes. And we miss her. We just sit around and talk about all the things she cooked. Me and my brothers and sisters, some of us, somewhere, all of us, so every day, we go see one another. The ones of us that are still living, we go see one another. And we sit around and we talk about, remember Mama made that? Remember she did this? Remember her hands and this? And she was so clean, she would not allow people in her kitchen, or people who did not live there, or wasn't clean, or wasn't prepped, or her kids. And she would say, come in and cut this up, Tammy, or Tony, or Terry, or whatever. Cut this up, and I need it just this size and this way. Then she would come and mix it and put it together, and it would just be like a masterpiece. It would be like at all the grandkids, the grandkids to talk about her recipes, and we tell the stories of how you missed out. So she was definitely, if she could have wrote, we asked her to do a cookbook. She was like, no, I'm not going to do a cookbook. Why would I do that? Y'all pass on the recipes, to y'all family. But we still, like I said, we never can get it like she did it.
Did she have anything in particular that she cooked that you can mention?
Absolutely. I'm going to tell you one thing she did. She did a homemade dressing for Thanksgiving. We still can't duplicate that. I remember one day we were there and we were doing her stuff, and people always, she would cook so much food on the holidays she could feed the neighborhood. People would always come